You don't need that right now. Daniel said it before I could even ask. I was lying in a hospital bed in Chicago when I realized my phone was gone. My hand moved toward the nightstand. Empty. I turned my head. Daniel didn't look at me. He reached into his jacket, pulled my phone out, held it for a second, then slipped it back inside, not returning it, keeping it, like it was his decision to make. Something tightened quietly in my chest. "Where is my phone?" I asked anyway. Vanessa didn't answer. She just stepped closer to the bed, not touching me, just closer. Positioning. My fingers hovered in the air where the phone should have been. Cold plastic. Nothing. "It's not here," I said. Daniel exhaled, like I was already making this harder than it needed to be. "You don't need that right now." Not a suggestion, a decision. He didn't ask me. He decided for me. That was the first moment I realized this wasn't about my recovery. That was the moment something in me went still. Not confused, not disoriented, still. Because I recognized this, not the situation, the pattern. The way Daniel spoke when he had already decided something. The way he didn't ask. This wasn't new. It was just bigger now. And for the first time, I understood something I couldn't quite name yet. I wasn't in control of what was happening in this room. What I didn't know yet was how far they had already gone, or how much of this had been arranged before I ever woke up. My name is Frances Morgan. I'm 73 years old. I spent most of my life as a school principal in Naperville, just outside Chicago. I've handled crises, budgets, people, situations that required clarity, not panic. So when my own son told me I didn't need my phone, I didn't argue. I watched. If you've ever had someone make decisions for you without asking, especially when you were at your most vulnerable, you'll understand why I didn't push back right away. Stay with me. Because what I realized in that room didn't happen all at once. "Where is it?" I asked again, quieter this time. Daniel rubbed his jaw like he was trying to stay patient. "I have it. Just for now. You kept trying to call people earlier. It wasn't helping." "Helping what?" I asked. He didn't answer. Vanessa stepped in smoothly. "The hospital listed Daniel as your emergency contact," she said. "They needed someone to manage things while you were being evaluated." Evaluated. The word sat heavy in my chest. "I spoke to the attending physician," Daniel added quickly. "They flagged some confusion this morning. Nothing serious, but we need to keep things simple for now." Simple. I let my gaze drift past them. The IV stand, the tray of untouched food, the soft hum of machines. Everything looked normal. Too normal. My body felt slower than usual, but my mind wasn't drifting. It was sharpening. "Frances," Vanessa said softly, her hand resting on the bed rail, "we've been handling things for you, just temporarily." Handling. Not asking. Not checking. Handling. Daniel pulled the chair closer and sat down. The folder on the table shifted slightly. He opened it just a fraction, then closed it again. "Once you're discharged," he said, "we'll move you somewhere quieter. A rehabilitation center, just until you're fully stable." I looked at him. "For how long?" I asked. "A few weeks," he said. Vanessa nodded quickly. "Maybe longer. It depends on what they recommend." They. Always they. I let the silence stretch. "And my house?" I asked. Vanessa blinked, just once. "Your house is fine," she said. "Don't worry about that right now." Don't worry. I had heard that before. From parents, from staff, from people who wanted control without questions. My eyes moved back to the folder. It wasn't hospital paperwork. Too thick. Too formal. "You've already started paperwork," I said. Daniel leaned back slightly. "Just standard discharge planning, nothing complicated." His tone didn't change, but his hand did, closing the folder more firmly this time, like he didn't want me to see. A small, sharp realization pressed into my chest. Not fear, recognition. "Can I see it?" I asked. "Not right now," he said. "You need rest." Rest. The word didn't belong in this room. I shifted slightly in the bed, letting my arm brush the tray. A plastic cup tipped, water spilling onto the floor. Vanessa reacted immediately, grabbing tissues. Daniel stepped back. The nurse from earlier reappeared at the doorway. "Everything okay in here?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel answered quickly. "Just a spill." Her eyes moved from him to me. I held her gaze for a second longer than necessary, not pleading, just steady. Then I nodded once. "I'm fine," I said. She didn't look convinced. She stayed a second longer this time, long enough to notice the silence, long enough to feel something was off. Then she gave a small, careful smile and walked away. The room closed in again. Daniel exhaled like something had almost slipped out of place. Vanessa finished wiping the floor, her movements precise, controlled. No one spoke. And in that silence, something settled into place inside me. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't concern. They weren't reacting. They were following something that had already been set in motion. A plan. I let my head rest back against the pillow, my breathing slow and even, my eyes half closed, not because I was tired, because I needed them to believe I was, because whatever was inside that folder, whatever they had already begun, I was going to need to see it. Just not yet. Daniel didn't open the folder again right away. He kept his hand on it, fingers spread like he could feel the paper through the cover, like whatever was inside mattered more than anything else in the room. I let a few seconds pass, then I said quietly, "If it's just discharge planning, I should understand it." Vanessa looked at him. Not long, just enough. "Maybe we can go over it together," she said, "just the basics." Daniel hesitated. For a moment, I thought he might refuse again. Then he exhaled and pulled the folder closer, flipping it open with controlled, careful movements, like he didn't want anything inside shifting out of place. "Fine," he said. "We'll keep it simple." Simple. He turned the first page toward me, but only halfway, angling it so I could see but not fully take it in. Hospital letterhead, typed text, signatures at the bottom. "Discharge summary," he said. "Standard documentation. It just confirms your stay, the observation notes, and recommended follow-up care." I leaned slightly forward, letting my eyes move slowly across the page. Temporary cognitive disorientation, observation period, recommended transition to supervised recovery environment. The wording was careful, clinical, non-committal, not a diagnosis, but enough to justify something more. My fingers shifted slightly against the blanket. "And this?" I asked, nodding toward the next page. Daniel flipped it. "This is just the referral," he said. "A rehabilitation center. Silver Oaks in Evanston. Quiet place? Good staff." Vanessa added quickly, "It's temporary, just until you're stable again." Temporary. The word echoed faintly. I scanned the page. Admission agreement. Length of stay, to be determined based on medical evaluation. Then, lower down. Financial responsibility acknowledgement. My gaze paused there, not long enough to draw attention, just long enough to understand what I was looking at. This wasn't about care. This was about control. My fingers curled tighter into the blanket, nails pressing into my palm just enough to ground me. I kept my face still. "Do I have a choice?" I asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. "It's what the doctor recommends," Vanessa said. That wasn't the question. I let the silence sit there, unanswered. Then I nodded slowly, as if that had been enough. Daniel seemed to relax a fraction. He turned another page. "This is just authorization for information sharing," he said. "So we can talk to the facility, handle coordination." Handle, always that word. I read the header carefully. Authorization for release of medical and financial information. Financial. My eyes moved lower. Listed contacts, Daniel Morgan. No one else. "Why is it only you?" I asked. "You named me as your emergency contact," he said quickly. "It's standard." Vanessa smiled faintly. "We're just trying to make things easier for you." Easier. My gaze shifted again, this time to the stack beneath. There were more pages, thicker paper. Not hospital forms, legal formatting. "You're moving very quickly," I said. Daniel gave a short, controlled smile. "We're being efficient." Efficient. Not careful. Not patient. Efficient. "Those aren't hospital documents," I said. Daniel's fingers tightened slightly. "They're just supporting forms," he said, "in case we need to handle things while you're recovering." "In case," I repeated. Vanessa stepped in again, her tone smooth. "Just temporary safeguards, nothing permanent." Temporary. Again. I leaned back against the pillow, letting my head rest slightly to one side. "You're preparing for something," I said. Neither of them answered. That was answer enough. "Francis," Vanessa said gently, "you don't have to go through all of this right now. We can take care of it." Take care of it. I closed my eyes for a moment, not fully, just enough. Then opened them again, slower this time. "I'd like to understand what I'm signing," I said. My voice came out softer now, less steady, deliberately. Daniel watched me for a second longer than necessary, measuring. Then he flipped one more page. "This is just a temporary guardianship acknowledgement," he said. "Nothing unusual. It allows us to make decisions if you're not able to." If. The word was small, but it held everything. My eyes moved across the page. Temporary guardian designation, decision-making authority, financial oversight provisions. The language was careful, conditional, but broad. Too broad. "And how long does that last?" I asked. "Only while you need it," Vanessa said quickly. "That depends on medical evaluation," Daniel added. Evaluation. Always something just out of my reach. I let my gaze drop, as if the text were becoming harder to follow. My fingers loosened slightly now, the earlier tension hidden again beneath stillness. "I'm still a little tired," I said. Vanessa's expression softened instantly. "Of course you are." Daniel closed the folder halfway. "We don't need to do this right now," he said. "You can sign later." Later. I nodded slowly. That might be better. He seemed satisfied with that, but as he began to close the folder fully, a single page shifted slightly, just enough for a line near the bottom to catch my eye. Property coordination, listing preparation. My breath stayed steady. I didn't react, but something inside me did. This wasn't future planning. This was already happening. Vanessa reached over and adjusted the papers, sliding them neatly back into place. "We've already spoken to an agent," she said too quickly, "just to understand the market, in case, later." Daniel looked at her, a sharp glance. Controlled, warning, too late. "What agent?" I asked. She hesitated, then smiled. "It's nothing official." Nothing official. But already moving. My gaze stayed on her a second longer. She looked away first. Daniel cleared his throat and closed the folder completely this time. "We're getting ahead of ourselves," he said. "Right now, the focus is your recovery." Recovery. Always the same frame, always the same direction. I let my head sink back again, slower this time, my eyelids lowered, my breathing even. If they believed I was fading, they would slow down. If they slowed down, they might make mistakes. "I think I should rest," I said quietly. Vanessa nodded immediately. "That's a good idea." Daniel stood, sliding the folder back onto the table, but closer to himself this time. Not where I could reach it. Of course, I let my eyes close fully now. Not because I was tired, because I needed them to believe I was done asking questions, because whatever was in that folder, the facility, the signatures, the access, the house, none of it was starting today. It had already started, and I was already behind. I kept my eyes closed long enough for the room to settle. Chairs shifted, a drawer opened, paper slid back into place. Vanessa's voice dropped to a near whisper. "She's fading again." Daniel answered just as quietly. "Good, we'll finish this later." Finish this. Footsteps moved toward the door. A pause. Then the soft click of it, closing behind them. Silence followed, but not the empty kind. The kind that waits. I didn't move right away. I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. Then I opened my eyes. The room looked the same. The tray, the IV stand, the pale light at the window, but something had shifted. The folder was still there, not in Daniel's hands this time. On the table, closer than before, but not quite within reach. He had moved it just enough to keep control. But not enough. I turned my head slowly, listening. No voices in the hallway, no footsteps nearby, just the low hum of the machines and the faint rhythm of distant movement. I pushed my hand forward. The effort was small, but it felt deliberate, measured. My fingers brushed the edge of the table, then the folder. I paused again, not from weakness, from habit. Years of watching people carefully had taught me something. The first move matters. I pulled the folder toward me, not fast, not slow, just enough. Then I opened it. This time there was no one angling the pages, no one controlling what I could see. The discharge summary was exactly as I remembered. Careful language, no final diagnosis, but positioned just right to justify everything that came after. I turned the page. The Silver Oaks Agreement, admissions, duration, financial responsibility. I read slower this time. Looking at the details Daniel hadn't wanted me to linger on. Primary contact, Daniel Morgan. Authorized decision maker, pending confirmation, pending, not granted, not yet. I turned another page. Authorization forms, medical, financial, everything routed through him. My name still there, but narrowing, shrinking into a line of text that could be moved, redirected, signed around. I kept going. The paper changed halfway through the stack, heavier, thicker. Legal formatting. This was what he hadn't wanted me to see. Guardianship acknowledgement. Temporary designation. Conditional authority. The words were precise, carefully constructed to sound limited, but open enough to expand. I followed the language down to the bottom of the page. Signature line? Blank? For now. I exhaled slowly, then turned the next page. That's when it stopped being theoretical. Different header. Not medical, not hospital, a real estate firm. Keller Williams, Naperville branch. My fingers stilled. Listing preparation checklist. Pre-market evaluation. Staging consultation. My eyes moved faster now, scanning the details. Property address. My address. For a split second, I didn't see the text. I saw the front steps. The brass handle I'd replaced myself, the dining room window that caught the afternoon light just right. Then the words came back into focus. Timeline estimates, photography scheduling, suggested listing window. This wasn't in case. This wasn't later. This was already moving. A second document followed. Property transition notes, preliminary valuation range, agent contact, partially filled, dates, left open but not blank, waiting, not planned, waiting. My grip tightened slightly on the edge of the paper, the thin rustle louder than it should have been in the quiet room. That's when it became clear. They weren't preparing for a possibility. They were positioning for a transfer, and they needed one thing to finish it. Authority. My authority. I turned back one page. Guardianship. Then forward again. Property. It connected cleanly. Too cleanly. That was when I understood this had been moving forward without me for longer than I thought. By the time I reached the last page, I realized this wasn't something they were planning. It was something they had already started. I closed the folder halfway, listening again. Still quiet. But not for long. I slid the papers back into place, aligning them exactly as they had been. Edges straight, corners flush, nothing disturbed. Then I let my hand fall back onto the blanket. Slow, loose, like I had never reached for anything. The door opened. I didn't look. Not right away. Footsteps. Softer this time. Not Daniel. Not Vanessa. "Mrs. Morgan?" a voice said gently. I turned my head. The nurse from earlier stood just inside the room. Up close, she looked younger than I'd first thought. Early 30s, maybe. Name badge, Emily Carter. "Yes," I said. She stepped a little further in, glancing briefly at the table, at the folder, then back to me. "Just checking on you," she said. "You seemed a bit overwhelmed earlier." Overwhelmed. That was one word for it. "I'm all right," I said. She didn't look convinced. Her eyes moved again. Quick, careful, not intrusive, observing. "You've had a lot of information thrown at you," she said. "That can be a lot, especially after a medical episode." Episode. I held her gaze. "I'm not confused," I said. It came out quieter than I expected, but steadier. She didn't answer immediately. Just watched me. Not the way Daniel had. Not calculating. Something else. Concern, maybe. Or doubt. "I understand," she said finally. "Sometimes it's not about confusion, just, fatigue." Fatigue. A safer word. I nodded once, as if that made sense. Her eyes softened slightly, but her posture didn't fully relax. "Your son mentioned discharge planning," she said, "and a possible transfer." "Yes," I said. She hesitated. Longer this time. Her fingers shifted lightly against the clipboard in her hand. Then, carefully, "Are you comfortable with that?" There it was. Not a direct challenge, but not neutral either. I let my gaze drift for a second, like I was considering. Then I looked back at her. "I'd like to understand everything before I agree to anything," I said. Careful, neutral, but clear. Her expression changed, just slightly, a flicker, recognition. "I can help explain some of the medical parts," she said, "if that would be useful." Medical, not legal, not financial. Still, it was something. "I appreciate that," I said. She stepped closer to the bed, lowering her voice a little. "If you ever feel like things are moving too quickly," she said, "you're allowed to ask for more time." Allowed. The word settled differently than when Daniel used it. Here, it sounded real, not controlled. I studied her face, looking for the same patterns I had seen in the other two. I didn't find them, not the same way. "Thank you," I said. She gave a small nod, then glanced once more toward the table, toward the folder, then back at me. as if she understood more than she was saying. I held her gaze for a second longer, not asking yet, not pushing, just measuring. Because if I was going to take the next step, if I was going to trust anyone in this room, I needed to know one thing first: whether she would listen, or whether she would walk away like the others had. Emily didn't move right away. She stayed where she was, one hand resting lightly on the bed rail, the other still holding her clipboard. Her eyes didn't leave my face. "Do you feel safe here?" she asked. The question was quiet, careful, not something she would ask unless she already suspected the answer might matter. I held her gaze. For a moment, I considered the simplest response. Yes, that would have ended it, kept everything easy. But nothing about this was easy. "I feel managed," I said. Her expression shifted just slightly, not alarm, recognition. "That's not the same thing," she said. "No," I answered, "it isn't." She glanced toward the door, then back at me. "Your son is listed as your emergency contact," she said. "That gives him a certain level of involvement, but it doesn't give him control over your decisions unless I'm declared incapable," I finished. She nodded. "Or unless you've signed something that gives him that authority." I didn't look at the folder. I didn't need to. "Not yet," I said. That was enough. Emily took a small breath, then stepped closer, lowering her voice further. "If you're concerned about how things are being handled," she said, "there are protocols. You can request an independent review, or speak to someone outside the hospital." Outside. That word mattered. I let it sit between us for a second. Then I said, "I'd like to speak to my attorney." She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the clipboard. "That's absolutely your right," she said, but her voice had changed. Less certain, more cautious. "I don't have my phone," I said. She already knew that. Her eyes flicked toward the door again, then to the table, then back to me. "You mentioned earlier that you were trying to call people," she said carefully. "Yes." "And your son has your phone?" "Yes." Silence stretched, not uncomfortable, measured. She shifted her weight slightly, thinking. "There are policies about patient access to communication," she said, "especially if there are concerns about decision-making capacity." Concerns, the same word, reframed. "But those policies don't remove your right to contact legal counsel," she added. "I didn't push. I didn't ask again. I just waited, because pressure would make this harder. And she was already deciding." Emily exhaled slowly. Then her eyes flicked briefly up toward the corner of the room. A small black dome. Camera. Her gaze dropped just as quickly. That was the moment. The line she was measuring. Then she set the clipboard down on the small counter near the wall. "I can step out and speak to the charge nurse," she said. "We can initiate a review process. That would temporarily limit external decision-making until things are clarified. Limit, not remove." A pause. Then she added, lower now. "And if there's any concern about undue influence, Adult Protective Services can be notified." There it was, said out loud, not hinted, not softened, not avoided, a P.S. I kept my expression neutral, but something inside me shifted, quiet, controlled, but real. This might actually work. "Would that be appropriate?" I asked. She met my eyes again. "If you feel like your autonomy is being compromised," she said, "then yes. Autonomy." Another word that felt real in her voice, not controlled, not redirected. "I would like that," I said. My voice stayed even, but inside, something steady began to build. Not relief, not yet, but direction. She nodded once, then hesitated again, just a fraction longer this time. "Your attorney," she said. "Do you have someone you trust?" "Yes," I said. "Laura Bennett, Chicago." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Recognition." "She handles elder law cases," Emily said. "Yes." That seemed to settle something for her. "Okay," she said quietly. Another pause, then lower, more deliberate now. "I need to be clear. There are protocols I have to follow. I can't just bypass procedure." "I understand," I said. And I did. That was the difference. I wasn't asking her to break rules. I was asking her to use them. Emily picked up her clipboard again, then set it back down, like she had already made the decision. "I'm going to step out for a moment," she said. "I'll speak to the attending physician and the charge nurse. If we initiate a capacity review, it will slow things down." Slow things down. That was exactly what I needed. "And APS?" I asked. She nodded. "If I file a concern, it triggers an external check," she said. "Someone like Michael Turner from Illinois APS would be assigned. They don't rely on family reports. They come in, ask direct questions, and document everything independently." Independent, that was the word that mattered. "They can override temporary assumptions," she added quietly, "if something doesn't line up." Didn't line up. I let out a slow breath. "Thank you," I said. She didn't respond right away. She just looked at me, not evaluating, not judging, confirming. Then she gave a small nod and stepped toward the door. Her hand paused on the handle. "Frances," she said quietly. I looked at her. "If anything changes," she added, "or if you feel pressured, don't agree to anything." "I won't," I said. That part was easy. She opened the door and stepped out. The room felt different the moment she left. Not empty, not controlled, open. For the first time since I had woken up, something had shifted beyond observation. Something had moved. I turned my head slightly toward the table. The folder was still there, closed, waiting. But it didn't feel like the center of the room anymore, not the only thing that mattered, because now there were other pieces moving. Processes Daniel couldn't control. People he couldn't manage. I adjusted slightly in the bed, careful not to disturb anything around me. My breathing stayed slow, even, measured, because this wasn't over, not even close, but it had changed. They had been moving forward without resistance. Now there was resistance, quiet, structured, real. And somewhere beyond the walls of this room, a process had already started, one that didn't depend on what Daniel wanted, or what Vanessa had prepared. I closed my eyes again, not to disappear this time, but to think, to map it out. Because when they came back, and they would, everything would look the same on the surface. But it wouldn't be. Not anymore. I didn't open my eyes right away when the door clicked again. Footsteps. 2 sets this time. Measured. Faster than before. Something had changed. I let a second pass, then another. Then I opened my eyes. Daniel was already inside, the folder back in his hands. Vanessa followed just behind him, her smile tighter now, controlled but thinner than before. "You're awake," she said. I didn't answer. I watched them instead. Daniel moved closer to the bed, placing the folder down with a quiet, deliberate motion. "We should finish going through this," he said. "It's better to get it done while everything is still clear." Clear. The word landed differently now. "I've already gone through it," I said. That made him pause. "Gone through what?" he asked. "The paperwork," I said. Vanessa's eyes flicked to the folder, then back to me. "That's not possible," she said too quickly. "I read enough," I answered. Daniel's expression didn't change immediately, but something behind it did. A tightening, a recalculation. "You were resting," he said. "I wasn't confused," I replied. The room went still, not silent, still. "I am not confused," I said again. Clearer this time, slower, deliberate. Vanessa let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No one is saying you are," she said. "You did," I said. Neither of them answered that. Daniel pulled the chair closer again, sitting down in the same controlled way he had before. "Francis," he said, voice softer now, more careful, "we're just trying to make sure you're taken care of. This is temporary." Temporary! Again. "I'm not signing anything," I said. That was the shift. It didn't feel loud. It didn't need to be. But it changed everything. Daniel blinked once. Vanessa's smile disappeared completely. "We haven't asked you to sign anything yet," she said. "You were going to," I answered. Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. "You're jumping ahead," he said. "Let's just walk through it together. Once you understand everything, you'll see why this makes sense." "I understand it," I said. His jaw tightened. "Then you understand why we need to move quickly." There it was. Not care. Not concern. Speed. "No," I said. "I understand why you do." Vanessa stepped in before he could respond. "Francis, you're not in a position to manage everything right now," she said. "You've just had a medical event. The doctors didn't declare me incapable." I cut in. Her voice stopped, mid-sentence. Daniel's eyes sharpened slightly. "That's not what this is about," he said. "It is," I replied, "because that's the only way any of this works." I let my gaze move from him to the folder, then back again. "You need me to sign something," I said, "or be declared unable to refuse." No one spoke. That was answer enough. Daniel leaned back slowly. "Where is this coming from?" he asked. "From reading what you didn't want me to read?" I said. Vanessa crossed her arms. "You're misinterpreting things," she said. "No," I answered. "I'm not." The air in the room shifted. Not dramatic, not explosive, just different. For the first time, they weren't ahead of me. They were reacting. If you've ever had someone try to make decisions for you, quietly, carefully, like it's for your own good, you know how hard it is to push back without being dismissed. But once you see it clearly, you don't unsee it. And you don't give it back. "So tell me, would you sign something you didn't fully control? Or would you stop everything and make them explain it? Stay with me. Because this is where it started to change." Daniel exhaled, slower this time. "Let's not turn this into something it isn't," he said. "We're trying to help you." "Then slow down," I said. Vanessa shook her head slightly. "We can't delay everything. There are timelines, appointments, people already scheduled." "People scheduled." I watched her carefully. "What people?" I asked. She hesitated, just a fraction too long. Daniel turned his head toward her, that same look from before, sharp, warning, too late. "The staging team," she said. "They've already been to the house. Just preliminary, nothing major." My chest didn't tighten this time. It settled, because that confirmed it. Not a plan, a process already in motion. "They've been inside my house?" I asked. Vanessa tried to soften it. "Just to assess the space, standard preparation." "Preparation." "For selling it," I said. "No one said that," Daniel replied quickly. "You didn't have to." The room held that silence again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one had weight. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," Vanessa said. "No," I replied. "You did that." Daniel stood this time, not abruptly, but not slowly either. "We're going to take a step back," he said. "You're clearly overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. The word didn't touch me anymore. "I'm not overwhelmed," I said. "I'm aware." That stopped him. Vanessa looked toward the door, then back at him. Something unspoken passed between them, a recalculation. Again, and this time they were behind. Another knock came at the door. Lighter. Quieter. Vanessa turned. The door opened slightly and a younger voice came through. "Hi, sorry, I wanted to check on her." "Chloe." She stepped inside, hesitant at first, then more fully. Her eyes moved from Daniel to Vanessa, then to me. "Grandma?" she said softly. "I'm all right," I said. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the room longer than they should have. Something about what she was seeing didn't sit right with her. "I stopped by the house earlier," she said, her voice tightening slightly as she glanced at her father. "There were people there, moving things around." Vanessa stiffened. "Just organizing," she said quickly. Chloe shook her head, more firmly this time. "No," she said, "they were measuring and taking photos, like it was being listed." Her voice dropped slightly at the end, not accusing, but unsettled. The room tightened again. Daniel didn't speak. Vanessa didn't either. They didn't need to. It was already said. I looked at Chloe. "Thank you," I said. She nodded once, still watching them. Not me. Them. That was new. Neither of them corrected her. Neither of them denied it. Because they couldn't. And now it wasn't just me who knew. It was out in the open. Not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. And for the first time since this began, they weren't controlling the narrative. They were trying to contain it. And that was the moment I knew. They had already lost control. The room didn't settle after Chloe spoke. It held, not tense in the way it had been before, but exposed. Daniel didn't sit back down. He stayed standing, one hand resting against the back of the chair, like he needed something solid to hold on to. Vanessa recovered first. "We're getting ahead of ourselves," she said, smoothing her tone. "Nothing has been decided. We're just preparing options." Options. The word sounded thinner now. Chloe didn't answer. She just stood there, watching them. Not me. Them. That shift mattered. Daniel exhaled slowly. "We'll step out for a minute," he said. "Let things calm down." He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at Vanessa, a decision made without speaking. They moved toward the door, not quickly, not slowly, controlled, but not confident. The door closed behind them. Chloe stayed. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I am now," I said. She nodded, but her eyes flicked again toward the table, then back to me. "I didn't know they were doing that," she said. "I know," I answered. She hesitated, like she wanted to say more, then didn't. A second knock came at the door. This one firmer, professional. Chloe stepped back instinctively. The door opened. Emily entered first, and behind her, a man I hadn't seen before, mid-40s maybe, calm presence, neutral expression, not hospital staff, different posture, different weight. "Mrs. Morgan?" he said. "Yes." "I'm Michael Turner," he said, "Illinois Adult Protective Services." The room shifted again. Not emotionally, structurally. Chloe straightened slightly beside me. Emily stayed near the door, watching. "I understand there may be some concerns about decision-making and external pressure," Michael continued. "I'd like to speak with you privately, if that's all right." "Yes," I said. Chloe looked at me. "Do you want me to stay?" she asked. I considered it, then shook my head. "Not right now." She nodded, then stepped out as Emily guided her gently into the hallway. The door closed, Michael didn't sit right away. He looked around the room first, at the table, at the folder, at me. Then he pulled the chair closer and sat. "I'm going to ask you a few questions," he said. "Simple ones. This is just to understand your situation." I nodded. "Do you know where you are?" "Yes, Northwestern Memorial, Chicago." "Do you know today's date?" I answered. He nodded once. Clear. Direct. No hesitation. "Do you understand the documents your family has presented to you?" he asked. "Yes." "Have you signed anything granting decision-making authority?" "No." "Have you been told you are required to?" "No," I said, "but I've been encouraged to move quickly." He watched me for a second, then made a note. "Do you feel pressured to agree to anything?" he asked. "Yes." The word sat in the room, simple, unavoidable. Michael nodded again. "Have you given anyone power of attorney?" he asked. "No." "Has a guardianship been legally established?" "No." Another note. He closed the folder in his hands, then looked at me again. "Based on what you've told me," he said, "there is no current legal authority allowing anyone to make financial or residential decisions on your behalf." I held his gaze. "I understand," I said. He nodded. "I'm going to initiate a temporary hold on any actions that rely on assumed authority," he continued. "That includes property listing activity, account access beyond standard monitoring, and any transition to long-term care that isn't directly consented to by you." There it was. Not suggestion, not discussion, action. "Effective immediately," he added. For a second, no one moved. The room didn't react the way rooms usually do when something important is said. It just held. Daniel shifted his weight, like he was about to step forward, then stopped. Not because he changed his mind, because something had stopped him. Vanessa looked between them, her expression tightening, trying to follow what had just happened, and failing. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It wasn't something they could adjust or redirect. Whatever they had been building, quietly, carefully, had just been cut off mid-step. Not slowed, not questioned, stopped. I could feel it in the way the room settled around us, in the way no one reached for the folder, in the way Daniel didn't speak again right away. That was when it became real. Not what they had planned, what they had lost control of. Something inside me steadied. Not relief. Control. Everything had stopped, but I had a feeling they weren't finished yet. Michael stood. "I'll also be documenting this as a potential undue influence case," he said. "That means any further steps will require verification through independent review." Independent. Consistent. Clear. Emily stepped slightly forward. "We've already notified administration," she said. "They're initiating a private review." Private, not family-controlled. For a moment it felt like things were finally shifting in my favor, but something about it felt too easy. Michael nodded. "Good," he said. Then he turned toward the door. "Before I step out," he said, "is there anything else you'd like to state for the record?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. He waited. "I have not agreed to any transfer, any guardianship, or any sale of my property," I said, "and I do not consent to anyone acting on my behalf in those areas." He held my gaze for a second longer, then nodded. "Understood." He opened the door. Daniel was already there, standing just outside, Vanessa beside him, waiting. Michael didn't step aside. He stood in the doorway, between us. "We'll need to speak," Daniel said, sharper now. Michael's expression didn't change. "We will," he replied, "but not here." Vanessa crossed her arms. "There's been a misunderstanding," she said. Michael didn't respond to that. Instead, he turned slightly, positioning himself so they couldn't see fully into the room. "From this point forward," he said calmly, "any decisions involving Ms. Morgan will be reviewed independently. No documents are to be presented for signature without oversight." Daniel's jaw tightened harder this time. "That's not necessary," he said, the control in his voice slipping just enough. "It is now," Michael replied, simple, final. Emily remained just behind him, quiet but present, not backing down. Vanessa's eyes moved past them, trying to find me. I met her gaze, steady, unmoved. "I've reported everything," I said, not loud, not sharp, just clear. Daniel didn't look at me. He looked at Michael, calculating, adjusting. Too late, because whatever they had started, whatever they had planned, was no longer theirs to control. And for the first time since I woke up, I wasn't alone in saying no. The system was saying it with me. The hallway didn't quiet down after Michael stepped out. Voices carried, lower now, controlled, but not calm. Daniel's voice, Vanessa's, then Michael's, steady even. I couldn't make out every word, but I didn't need to. The tone had changed. They weren't explaining anymore. They were being handled. Emily remained near the door for a moment longer, then stepped inside again, closing it gently behind her. "They'll be in a consultation room," she said. "Administration wants everything documented properly." "Consultation room. Not the hallway, not here. Contained." I nodded. "Thank you," I said. She gave a small nod in return, then glanced at the table, at the folder before stepping back again. "You're doing exactly what you should be doing," she added quietly. "Not reassurance, confirmation." Then she left. The room settled again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt structured, like something was holding the space in place. A soft knock came a few minutes later. Different rhythm, measured, confident. "Come in," I said. The door opened. A woman stepped inside, mid-50s, composed, sharp eyes that moved quickly but without hurry. She closed the door behind her before speaking. "Frances Morgan?" she said. "Yes." "I'm Laura Bennett." At the name, something shifted outside the room. A pause in the hallway, a break in whatever Daniel had been saying. Even without seeing him, I knew he had heard it. Her voice carried that kind of weight. "I came as soon as I received the message," she said, moving closer to the bed. "Emily filled me in on the basics. I'd like to confirm a few things with you directly." I nodded. She set a leather folder on the table, next to the one Daniel had brought, and opened it. "Have you signed any documents today?" she asked. "No." "Have you granted power of attorney to anyone?" "No." "Have you agreed to any guardianship arrangement?" "No." She paused, then gave a small nod. "Good," she said. Not relief, not surprise, just confirmation. She flipped a page in her folder. "Then, as of this moment," she continued, "there is no legal authority transferred to Daniel or anyone else regarding your financial decisions, property, or medical placement beyond standard emergency contact communication. Clear, simple, final. That includes your home," she added. I held her gaze. "I understand." She studied me for a second, then nodded again. "A PS has already placed a temporary hold," she said. "I confirmed that on my way up. That means no listing activity can proceed. No staging, no marketing, no contracts, nothing moves forward." Stopped, just like that. "Additionally," she continued, "I've contacted your primary bank. Your accounts have been flagged for monitoring. No unusual withdrawals, transfers, or third-party access will be approved without direct verification from you." Layer by layer. Everything they had started, blocked. They may try to argue that they were acting in your best interest, Laura added. That's common, but without documented authority, it doesn't hold. Her tone didn't change, not once. Have they accessed any of your accounts? She asked. Not that I'm aware of, I said. We'll verify, she replied, but the flag is already in place. If anything was attempted, it will show. I let that settle, then asked, What happens now? Laura closed her folder. Now, she said, they answer questions. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Firm, controlled. Laura glanced toward it. Come in. The door opened. Michael stepped in first. Behind him, Daniel and Vanessa. But this time, Daniel didn't wait. This is unnecessary, he said immediately, stepping forward before Michael could speak. We've been cooperating. There's no reason to escalate this further. There it was. Control slipping. Not loud, but visible. Laura didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Then you can explain your actions in the consultation room, she said. Vanessa stopped mid-step. Daniel's expression hardened. We haven't done anything wrong, he said, sharper now. That's what the review will determine, Michael replied. Simple, procedural. Daniel looked at me again, this time directly. This isn't necessary, he said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Laura stepped slightly to the side, placing herself, not aggressively, but clearly, between me and them. Given the current situation, she said calmly, any further discussion with my client will happen with me present, and only if she agrees. Silence. Daniel exhaled through his nose, slower this time but not controlled. Vanessa crossed her arms again, but neither of them moved forward, because they couldn't. Administration has arranged a room, Michael said. We should continue there. He stepped back, opening the space behind him. An exit, not an invitation, a direction. Daniel didn't move immediately. For a second, it looked like he might argue again. Push harder. But something had shifted, not just in the room, in the structure around him. He turned. Vanessa followed. Neither of them looked at me again. The door closed behind them. The room settled. Again. But this time it stayed that way. Laura remained where she was for a moment longer. Then she turned back to me. They've lost leverage, she said. Not dramatic, not emotional, just factual. For now, she added. I nodded, because I understood what she meant. This wasn't finished, but it had shifted. Completely. Laura gathered her papers, then looked at me again. We'll go step by step, she said. Nothing moves without your consent. Consent. The word sat differently now, not something being taken, something being held. I let out a slow breath, and for the first time since this began, it didn't feel like I was standing alone in that room, not against them, not inside it, but above it. Where they couldn't reach anything without going through me first. The discharge didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a handoff. Not from the hospital to my family, from confusion to control. Laura handled most of it. Quiet conversations. Signatures that actually meant something this time. Clear instructions to staff about who could and could not be involved. Daniel and Vanessa weren't there when I left. That wasn't an accident. It was part of the structure now. A driver Laura arranged pulled up just outside the entrance. No conversation, no questions, just a door opening, a ride home. Naperville looked the same as it always had, tree-lined streets, early afternoon light catching on familiar windows, the rhythm of a place that hadn't changed, but something inside me had. When the car slowed in front of my house, I didn't move right away. I looked. Really looked. Nothing obvious at first. The same front steps, the same door, but the air around it felt unsettled, as if something had already passed through. I stepped out. The driver waited. I walked up the path slowly, my hand brushing lightly against the railing. The brass handle was still there, the one I had replaced years ago, but it didn't feel the same when I touched it. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and stopped. For a moment, I didn't step forward. I stayed at the threshold, my hand still on the door, as if crossing fully into the room would confirm something I wasn't ready to name. This was where I had lived my life. Not perfectly, not quietly, but fully. The chair by the window, where I used to sit in the mornings with my coffee, the corner of the rug that never quite lay flat, no matter how many times I adjusted it, the small stack of mail I always meant to sort, and didn't. None of it had been important, until it was gone, until it had been replaced by something that looked right, but didn't feel like mine. For a second, I didn't see the room the way it was now. I saw it the way it had always been. My books on the table, the worn arm of the couch, the small, ordinary things that made it mine. Then, that image slipped. And what was left wasn't. The living room was too clean, not neat, staged. The couch cushions were aligned too precisely. The coffee table held a decorative tray that wasn't mine. A vase, neutral, forgettable, sat where my books had been. My books were gone. Not thrown away. Relocated. Hidden. The air smelled faintly different. Something artificial. Freshened. Prepared. I closed the door behind me slowly. Listened. No one inside. But everything had been touched. I moved further in. The dining room chairs had been repositioned. The rug slightly shifted. Subtle changes, but intentional. I walked toward the hallway. My steps were quieter now, measured. The first bedroom door was open. Inside, the bed had been remade with different linens, neutral tones, no patterns. The framed photo on the nightstand, gone, not broken, not missing, just removed. I turned toward the kitchen. Cabinets closed, counters cleared. Even the small things, the ones no one notices, had been adjusted. My mug wasn't by the sink, the one I used every morning. It wasn't there. I opened a cabinet, different arrangement, organized. Not by me, by someone else, someone preparing the space to be seen, not lived in. I closed it, slowly. Then I walked back into the living room. There, on the console near the wall, a folder, different from the hospital one, thinner, but just as deliberate. I opened it, listing drafts, property description. Bright, open, living space. Recently updated. Move-in ready. Move-in ready. There was no trace of me in those words, no history, no presence, nothing that suggested someone had lived here, built a life here, just space, clean, available, replaceable. My house, described like it was already someone else's. There were notes in the margins, suggestions, timing windows, photography dates. They hadn't just prepared the space, they had prepared the story. I closed the folder, set it back exactly where I found it. Then I walked to the front door again, opened it. The driver was still there, waiting. "I'll need a few minutes more," I said. He nodded, didn't ask why. That helped. I stepped back inside, closed the door, locked it. Then I turned the lock again, and again, listening to the sound. Final. Real. I moved through the house a second time. Slower now, not observing, documenting every change, every shift, every absence. The missing photo, the moved books, the replaced objects. I took mental notes, precise, ordered. Then I went to the small desk near the hallway, opened the drawer. My spare key set was still there, but the placement was off, slightly angled, like Someone had checked it and put it back. I took it out, held it for a second, then set it aside. Different pile, different purpose. I went to the closet, retrieved my lockbox, opened it, removed the documents inside, property records, account statements, insurance, everything that mattered, everything that proved ownership. I placed them on the table, in front of me, not hidden, not controlled. Then I made a list, not written but clear, locks, inventory, access points. I walked to the back door, checked it, unlocked, then locked, twice. The side windows, closed, but not secured. I fixed that, room by room, step by step, turning the house back into something that belonged to me, not something being prepared for someone else. When I finished, I returned to the living room. The staged version was still there, polished, neutral, empty. But now it sat on top of something else, something they hadn't accounted for. Awareness, documentation, control. I picked up my phone, not the one Daniel had taken, the spare, the one I kept for emergencies. I didn't call anyone yet, not immediately. I just held it. Because now, if I needed to, I could, and that changed everything. I walked back to the door, unlocked it, stepped outside. The driver looked up. "All set?" he asked. "Yes," I said. I took one last look at the house. Not the version they had staged, the real one, the one they had tried to erase. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. They weren't finished. They had already started something they couldn't easily walk away from, which meant one thing. They would come back, and next time, I wouldn't be waiting to understand. I would be ready. They came in the late afternoon. I knew it before the knock, the way the air shifted outside, the pause before sound. Then 3 firm knocks, not hesitant, not uncertain. Daniel. I didn't rush. I walked to the door at the same pace I had used all day, measured, controlled. I didn't open it immediately. "Francis," his voice came through. "We need to talk." Not, can we? Need. I unlocked the door, but I didn't step back. I opened it just enough to see them. Daniel stood on the porch, jaw set, shoulders tight. Vanessa beside him, arms folded, not defensive anymore, but contained, waiting, expecting. I stayed where I was, between them and the house. "You shouldn't be here," I said. Daniel exhaled sharply. "It's our house, too." "No," I said, not louder, just clear. "It isn't." The word landed and stayed. Vanessa stepped forward slightly. "We're not here to argue. We just want to fix this before it gets worse." "Before it gets documented," I said. She stopped. That small shift again. That recalculation. Daniel tried a different tone. "Francis, this has gone too far. You involved APS, a lawyer. You've escalated something that could have been handled privately." Privately. I looked at him, then at her, then back again. "You took my phone," I said. He didn't respond. "You controlled who I could speak to." Silence. "You brought documents into my hospital room and expected me to sign them while I was under observation." Vanessa opened her mouth. I didn't let her speak. "You sent people into my house," I continued, "without my consent." That one hit. I saw it in her face. "They didn't take anything," she said quickly. "They just prepared the space." "They moved everything," I said. My voice stayed even. "They removed personal items. They staged it. They created listing drafts." Daniel's jaw tightened. "We were getting ahead of the process," he said. "That's all." "For what?" I asked. He didn't answer, because there was no version of that sentence that worked anymore. "For selling it," I said. Vanessa shook her head. "That's not what this was." "It is," I replied, "because you needed me out of the way first." The air between us shifted again, not rising, not falling, settling, into something real. Daniel stepped closer. One step, not enough to cross the threshold, but enough to test it. "We're still your family," he said. "You can't just shut us out." I didn't move. "You shut me out first," I said. That landed differently, because it wasn't accusation, it was fact. "We were trying to help," Vanessa said, quieter now. "No," I answered. "You were trying to control." No one spoke after that. The silence held, but it didn't feel uncertain anymore. It felt finished. "I've documented everything," I said. Daniel's eyes flicked, just slightly. "A PS is involved. My attorney is involved. My accounts are flagged. The listing activity is blocked." Each piece, placed exactly where it belonged. "You don't have authority," I added. He didn't argue that. He couldn't. For a brief second, something in his expression cracked. Not anger, not defiance, something closer to realization. "You don't come into this house again without my permission," I said. "Not a threat, a boundary, clear, final." Vanessa's posture shifted, not defensive, something else, something smaller. "This doesn't have to end like this," she said. I looked at her. "It already did," I replied. Daniel exhaled slowly. For a moment, it looked like he might say something else. Push again. Try to find a different angle. But there wasn't one left. Because this wasn't about persuasion anymore. It was about limits. And they had reached them. He stepped back. Vanessa followed. Neither of them looked at the house again. The porch felt quieter without them. I closed the door, locked it. Once, then again. The sound was the same as before, but this time, it didn't feel like protection. It felt like ownership. For a moment, I stood there with my hand still on the lock, and realized something I hadn't felt all day. Calm. Not relief, not victory, just steady. Like everything had finally stopped moving around me. A soft knock came again, lighter this time. I walked to the door, opened it. Chloe stood there, alone. She didn't step in right away. "I saw them leave," she said. I nodded. "They won't be coming back like that," I said. She looked past me into the house, at the small changes, the careful staging. "They really did all this," she said. "Yes." She stepped inside slowly, not taking in the space as something new, but as something that had been changed. "I didn't know," she said. "I know," I answered. She looked at me then, not uncertain, not divided, clear. "What do you need?" she asked. The question was simple, but it held something different, not obligation, choice. I thought about it, then I said, "Just help me put things back." She nodded, no hesitation. We started small. The books first, then the table, the small things, the real things, piece by piece. The house began to shift again, not staged, not neutral, lived in, ours, not theirs. By the time the light outside softened into evening, the room felt different, not perfect, not finished, but real. Chloe stood near the doorway looking around. "It feels like you again," she said. I let that sit, then nodded. "Good," I said. She gave a small smile, then moved to the kitchen, like she belonged there, like she always had. I stayed where I was, looking at the room, at what had been changed, at what had been taken, at what had been returned. I didn't feel victorious, I just felt like things were finally back where they belonged. Some lines only become clear when you finally decide to draw them. If this were your life, would you keep the peace and stay silent, or draw the line even if it changes everything? Tell me what you would do in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, you can support it quietly. Like, share, or subscribe for more stories like this.